Well, first of all, thank you for being here. And I want to say right off the bat, the courage it takes for a pastor to do something like this, I'm not sure everyone in this room appreciates it. So I thank the church and the pastor. So those of you from this church, thank you. Obviously, your pastor is showing some courage. Thanks for you all for putting this on and inviting us. And thanks for Culpeper's Best for being in the back, watching our back. And because there's a reality to the danger of doing something like what we're doing here tonight. A real danger. People have been shot or tried to be shot, or all of the above, as you may have noticed if you're paying attention. Just speaking the truth is provocative these days. And thanks to Sheriff Jenkins, because those of you who are not aware, he has also been courageously speaking. And we're actually doing something September 17th here in Culpeper, also a day-long event that he's put together. So I think it's courageous that these things are going on. So what are we here to talk about? Well, first of all, we're going to talk about a real threat. And in a very short time, I'm going to try and give it to you, but also give it to you in small enough bites that it makes sense for those of you who are maybe new to this. So let me just start and ask, what is the great threat that we're facing right now? What do you think is the single greatest threat the United States faces today? Somebody. Raise your hand. Okay, radical Islam, yes, sir?
There's disengagement of its citizens from the world they live in.
Okay, disengagement of the citizens. Anybody else?
The Constitution.
Constitution is
the loss of the Constitution.
The loss
Yes.
of the Constitution. So far as I know, we haven't lost it yet, but I know what you're talking about. Anything else?
Ultimately, an EMP.
Okay, an EMP threat. Open borders. Is open borders the single most important threat? Is radical Islam? Is disengaged citizens? Yes, ma'am?
Terrorists within our borders.
Terrorists within our borders? Okay. Yes, ma'am?
Our own government.
Our own government. A tyrannical government. Okay, yes, sir?
Ignorance.
Ignorance of what?
All of the above.
Okay, yes, sir?
Citizen apathy.
Citizen apathy, that's I think what you said, right? Totally disengaged. Well, so I wouldn't disagree with any of those. So I think maybe in the next 25 minutes that I have left, I want to hopefully pull it together with you. I've been spending a lot of time the last 15 years mostly, 14 years going inside the government and outside the government, and certainly since 2008, traveling around the country speaking to governors, attorney generals, state, local law enforcement, members of Congress, former FBI, CIA, DIA directors, four-star generals. And there is a level of cluelessness, ignorance, that is astonishing. And since it's already been said tonight, I just want to maybe lead with this. When anybody swears an oath to the Constitution to protect against all enemies, foreign and domestic, there is a legally binding duty that comes with that. To know or do a due diligence search to know all enemies. Otherwise, your conduct's unprofessional. For a president or a national security advisor or an FBI, CIA director or a cabinet member with national security duties to say on international television, Islam doesn't stand for this, Islam is peaceful, is wrong, is factually and objectively wrong. And so that's unprofessional conduct. And when Americans are dead in San Bernardino and Orlando and Boston and Little Rock, Arkansas and Arlington, Virginia, that's called criminal negligence, and we put doctors and lawyers in jail for that. There is no version of Islam that does not teach that jihad is obligatory until Sharia, Islamic law, is the law of the land, not for Muslims, for everyone. There's no other version of Islam. And there's no version of Islam that doesn't define jihad as warfare against non-Muslims. So I'll begin this the way I have begun every presentation now for the last 12 or 13 months, since I realized I thought this was a good idea. If you can demonstrate that what I just said is not factually true, I will, number one, never brief it again, and I will give you $1,000 cash. How's that? So if you want to raise your BS flag and say this is not true, you better be standing on something rock solid, because you're going to be wrong all day long. If that's not what Islam is, then why is it taught in every single Islamic school on the planet? And the highest authorities in Islam teach it. So here's a book, the most prominent Islamic book used in Islamic schools in America. You can tell it's a little well used. I take it with me everywhere I go. And it defines, well, there's a lot of things it defines, but I want to talk about just what we're talking about. There are 3 duties in Islam according to this book. Anybody want to guess what they are? That they teach the children, the 3 duties.
Why? Kill the infidel.
No, that's not a duty.
They have to pay the money
No.
for jihad
To honor Allah.
annually.
3 duties. Dawah, to call people to Islam, jihad, and encourage good and forbidding evil. Those are the 3 duties, and they're teaching them to 7th graders in America. And it says this: the word jihad is most often associated with the act of physically confronting evil or wrongdoing. And it has a picture. What's that a picture of right there, sir? Right here. Yeah, it's a tank. It's a tank, so when the little children are confused about what jihad is, it says it right there. If anyone dies in jihad, they automatically will go to paradise. A shaheed or martyr is described this way by Allah. Don't think those who were killed in Allah's cause are dead. No, they are finding their bounty in the presence of the Lord. To Americans in Muslim schools, that's what's being taught, and much worse. As a matter of fact, let's just flip to the rear, just for a little fun, to see when they talk about the basic Islamic government. The duty of the Muslim citizen is to be loyal to the Islamic State. Taught right here in America. Taught right here. This book is used in Virginia. How about a little of that?
In a Muslim school or in
In Islamic school, the basis of the legal and political system is the Sharia of Allah. So Sharia is the law of the land. So what is Sharia? Anybody know? Do our enemies care about Sharia? You know, they have these things. You can go online and find thousands of demonstrations since, certainly hundreds since 2001. Sharia for the UK, Sharia for the Netherlands, Sharia for Britain, Sharia for this, Sharia for this. The whole war that we're fighting right now, it is the West against Islam. They want Sharia in the world, and they're saying it. As a matter of fact, does anybody remember the Times Square bomber?
Oh, yeah.
Well, when he got sentenced and is standing in the Southern District of New York federal court, and the judge said, "Would you like to say anything?" How many of you have read his entire transcript of what he said? Raise your hand. Nobody. Well, let me give you a couple snapshots, right? If I am given 1,000 lives, I will sacrifice them all for the sake of Allah, fighting this cause, defending our lands, making the word of Allah supreme over any religion or system. We Muslims don't abide by human made laws, because they're always corrupt. I say to them, we don't accept your democracy nor your freedom, because we already have Sharia law and freedom. And when he says freedom, he's talking about freedom from man-made laws. Anytime you hear a Muslim, especially a Muslim leader, talking, you have to use the filter of Sharia to understand, to translate English to English. When he says terrorism, he's not talking about what you mean when you mean terrorism. He's using Islam as the filter. And in Islam, terrorism is killing a Muslim without right. And when is it right to kill a Muslim? When he apostatizes, when he kills another Muslim without right. And other than that, to kill a Muslim is a capital crime. And you all are terrorists under Sharia, because you go to the election booth and you vote for people who have been waging war on Muslims for 15 years. That makes you and our military and our law enforcement terrorists. And you're culpable. But you would have to actually read Sharia to know that. The defeat of the U.S. is imminent, will happen in the near future, God willing, which will only give rise to the much-awaited Muslim caliphate, which is the only true world order. So, a caliphate, a global Islamic state under Sharia, is that not what he's saying?
Yeah.
The exact same thing that the caliph, the leader of the caliphate, al-Baghdadi of ISIS, says they want. Yes? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I just want to make sure we're all together on this. The exact same thing that Al-Qaeda says they want, the exact same thing that is in the Muslim Brotherhood bylaws in English. We have a copy of the understandingthethreat.com. It's on our website. You can go look at the screen captures. The Muslim Brotherhood is an international Muslim body which seeks to establish Allah's law in the land. A caliphate under Sharia. It's the same thing Tablighi Jamaat wants. It's the same thing Hamas, Hezbollah, Boko Haram, Abu Sayyaf. Yes, they have regional objectives. They have local objectives. But that's the ultimate aim. So all of them have the exact same objective. So isn't it interesting that when we arrest people, or when someone gets killed, like Omar Mateen or the San Bernardino shooters, or the Little Rock, Arkansas shooter who killed Private Andy Long, one of our soldiers, or the shooters in Chattanooga, isn't it funny? Or all these folks in Paris and Brussels and Germany now, stabbing people in Africa and Asia, every day there's an attack if you're not paying attention. Or we're missing it because the guy takes a machete into a restaurant in Columbus, Ohio, and screams Allahu Akbar and starts hacking people. And that's called just a violent assault. And he's got a mental issue. They've all got mental issues. Well, maybe they do have mental issues. But isn't it funny how they all get their version of Islam wrong in the exact same way? You want to know why they're getting it wrong in the exact same way? Well, I'll tell you. It's because Sharia comes from the Quran, and it comes from the Sunnah, the example of the Prophet Muhammad. And in the Quran, I'm going to jump ahead here. In the Quran, it says that Muhammad is the most exalted standard of character. He is perfect. So if he's the perfect example, why do Muslims step their right foot into a mosque? Only, always, because Muhammad did it. Why do Muslim men not wear gold? Because Muhammad said you can't do it. It makes you effeminate, so you don't do it. Why can a 6-year-old Muslim man marry a 7-year-old girl? Because Muhammad married a 6-year-old, consummated the relationship when she was 9. Why can they cut people's heads off? Because Muhammad said it was okay, and he was at the Battle of the Trench where he personally participated in cutting off the heads of 900 Jews. Okay? What in the heck are we talking about that ISIS doesn't stand for Islam? ISIS, that's the armies of Muhammad. That's exactly what Muhammad did. So my challenge to you is, what are we talking about here? Is this making you uncomfortable? A little honest discussion? No. Because the problem is, 100% of the Islamic advisors in the government and the Islamic advisors working at the state capitol in Virginia are the enemy. 100%. They're the enemy. Not just because they happen to grow up in a Muslim family, because they believe this. They believe in Sharia. And if you don't understand the control the Muslim Brotherhood has here in the United States, I'll give you as much as I can give you, and Michael's going to then tail right off of what I'm going to end on, and he's going to lay into it. But I will tell you, we are in some deep trouble. As a matter of fact, one of the leading officials for irregular warfare at the Department of Defense went public in the last 2 months, and he said, our entire decision-making process in the United States government is controlled by the enemy. That's the influence they have. You want to know why these things you've watched? How did we lose in Iraq and Afghanistan? Our military crushed the enemy on the battlefield. because we have no clue, because the very people advising, and for those of you in this room that want to hammer President Obama, swing away. But you better lay some burden on President Bush and on President Clinton too while you're at it. And on Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice if you're going to go after Mr. Kerry. This is a bipartisan, catastrophic failure that has cost lives, trillions of dollars, and has put the republic on the brink of destruction, literally. Literally. Not a clue what we're doing at the strategic level. If you look at the strategic documents that have been published, the most recent ones, they're incoherent. Who's the enemy? Ask anyone on Capitol Hill, who's the enemy? You want to know why we haven't declared war? Which, by the way, makes the war we're fighting, no matter how righteous we are at going after real bad guys, it's immoral and it's illegal according to the understanding of those principles of the founders. You have to declare war, and there's a moral reason for it. Can we just adjudicate capital punishment on anybody? Can we? No, you cannot. There is a legal process to go through it, just like there is a legal process to go through to declare war. And why is that? Because when you declare war, you are adjudicating a capital punishment on a nation. Lethal force on a nation. And it shouldn't be done willy-nilly by somebody who just wants to write an executive order or use executive privilege. We are so upside down from where we should be. But guess what? We're the sovereign. We also carry some of the blame because we've been silent a long time, allowing it. And little places, in our local levels, in our churches, in our schools, in our communities. The quiet tyranny of day-to-day living, and we've allowed it so as not to offend. And now you want to know how we got here, because a lot of people kept their mouths shut because we didn't want to hear it at the PTA meeting. What a weirdo we are, what a radical we are. That guy doesn't get along with anybody. Well, at this point, I don't give a crap. Okay? Because I have children, and I believe that what this nation stands for is the beacon of light for the world. This light goes out, we are in some serious trouble. But there's nothing that Islam teaches that isn't what ISIS and Al-Qaeda are doing. And so I just ask you, if you can demonstrate where ISIS or Al-Qaeda have misquoted Islamic law in the last 15 years. I'd love to hear it. I've laid that down on the footsteps of all kinds of people, including congressmen who are like, oh, you're exaggerating. Well, sir, just give me one time. And the fact that you don't even know where to begin tells me everything I know about how freaking clueless you are. And you should be tossed out of your bottom. And pastors who are bringing these people in and saying, we're all praying in the name of Jesus, they love Jesus too? Well, we used to call that blasphemy, but I guess we don't want to offend anybody anymore. So, when we're talking about Islam and Muhammad as being the perfect example, the most authoritative hadith scholar, meaning who accumulated the authoritative stories and sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, is Bukhari. As a matter of fact, in Bukhari it says, Sahih Bukhari is the most authentic and reliable book after the Quran, the book of Allah. That's how authentic it is in Islam. Okay? And what does Bukhari say the Prophet said? The hour of judgment will not come until the Muslims fight and kill the Jews. It will not come until the Jews hide behind the rocks and trees, until the rocks and trees say, O Muslim, O servant of God, there's a Jew behind me, come and kill him. That's why that is in first-grade textbooks, and it's in the Hamas covenant, because that is authoritative Islam. Or how about this one? Muhammad said, Allah's apostle, by him whose hands my soul is, Jesus, will shortly descend among you people, Muslims, as a just ruler, break the cross, meaning cast all Christians into hell for not converting to Islam, kill all the Jews, and abolish the jizya, the poll tax for non-Muslims, which will not be needed when all the Jews are slaughtered and all Christians are cast into hell for not converting to Islam. So the next time you see a pastor on TV saying, one God, three Abrahamic faiths, here's my question. This is not a theology class. I don't have a doctorate in theology. But how about Let me ask this. Sir, can an apple be a tire? No. Can a tire ever be an apple? Can the same guy who said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, nobody comes to the Father except through me, I am the Son of Man, can that be the same guy who's going to cast you, or if there are Christians here, into hell for not converting to Islam?
No.
Not logic. This is logic 101. Not possible. Can the same God who says to the Jews, you're my chosen people, be the same God that says, I'm going to slaughter you all for not converting to Islam? Yes or no?
No.
Yes or no?
No.
Thank you. So, the Quran says in Surah 9:5, fight and slay the unbelievers wherever you find them, and lie in wait for them in every stratagem of war. So for pagans, you convert or you die. For people of the book, 9:29, right? Fight those who believe not in the last day, even if they're people of the book, until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. Right? And then I just read from you out of that. The law of the land is the Sharia of Allah. Right? So before we get to that, how many minutes?
5, how many minutes?
Give me a 5-minute warning.
Yeah.
5-minute warning?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
do I have long? Is it a 3-minute warning? Okay, thank you. Let me just, I want to go back to this. So probably you all don't know, where'd my other book go?
That's on the desk.
That's the one I put on the desk, thank you. How many of you have heard of the tafsir? That's 1, 2, nice. Well, because you read my articles probably. If you all would go to Understanding the Threat and sign up for the newsletters, you'd know what this is. The tafsir legally defines every verse in the Quran. Let that sink in. It legally defines every verse in the Quran. There's no such thing as, I opened up my, Bible today and I was reading from Mark and I was in prayer and this is the inspiration. It doesn't exist in Islam. This is a legal system. These are not pastors, priests, and rabbis. These are jurists, scholars. They're legal scholars and judges. Okay? This legally defines every verse in the Quran. And I'm only bringing it up because I want to fire back to this, because I just read from you, fight and slay the unbelievers and wherever you find them, and lie in wait for them, and every stratagem of war, each and every ambush. So when it says fight the unbelievers, the mushrikeen, wherever you find them, it means on the earth in general. Okay? And when it says and capture them, it means execute some and keep some as prisoners. And when it says and besiege them and lie in wait for them in each and every ambush, it means do not wait until you find them, rather seek and besiege them in their areas and forts, gather intelligence about them in the various roads and fairways, so what is made wide looks even smaller to them. This way they will have no choice but to die or embrace Islam. Now, if you go to local Virginia, I don't know, I'm just thinking, isn't there a Islamic society in Charlottesville, isn't there? And you go to their website, you'll see that twice a week they do tafsir classes. And you will actually, unless they've taken it down because their imam knows that I do this, throw this up there, you'll see a picture of this book. So it's not only that they're doing tafsir, this one happens to be the most authoritative tafsir in all of Islam. So apparently it matters, and apparently they're teaching it and have classes for children in that. And that's what's in it. It defines the Quran. So if you know someone who's a Muslim and you don't think that they believe in this, fine. But that doesn't constitute a different version of Islam. This is why in the West we have fought 9 wars against Islam for the defense of Western civilization. And the first war America fought after the revolution was against the Barbary states, the Muslims, because they were waging jihad on the open seas against our ships and capturing our people and kidnapping them. And John Adams and Thomas Jefferson have recorded this, and the letter they sent back to the Continental Congress sits in the Library of Congress today about why Muslims do what they do, because it's a command from Allah. How about that? And Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. And if you read from John Quincy Adams, or you read from St. Thomas Aquinas, or Theodore Roosevelt, or Winston Churchill, or ad nauseum, there's plenty of historical understanding of this. The fact that we've had to go to war 9 times should be a clue that maybe this isn't the first time this happened. We just weren't taught in school about this. You want to know why there's a standing navy in the Constitution? Because of that, because of Muslims. Why were there letters of marque? Because of the Muslims. Because we were at war with them. And we're at war with them now. So, that is the basis for the discussion tonight. However, I'm going to close on this. One of the things that we do know from the largest terrorism financing and Hamas trial ever successfully prosecuted in American history, the United States versus the Holy Land Foundation in 2008 in Dallas, Texas, is that every major Islamic organization in the United States is a part of the movement to actually impose this on us. So if you want to stand up and say, well, I think there's an exception with this group, have your ducks in line, but I'm open. I've just been doing this a long time, never found one. Not one. Because the way it works is, if you are a Muslim organization, you pop up and you're not aligned with them, they step on you. We don't step on you. So finally, I just want to go to this little closing piece right here. Is that what we're seeing right now is a convergence of the socialist Marxist movement in the United States and the Islamic movement. And they're working together. And they're working together to destroy this country. And now they're wide open about it. So here you have, in New York City, they're celebrating Al-Quds Day, right? To celebrate the defeat, right? The victory of the Muslims over the non-Muslims, specifically the Jews. And you have a leader from Black Lives Matter saying that we are in line with the Palestinian movement. That's Hamas, is what he's talking about. We're in line with Hamas. When we do our 3-day law enforcement program, we literally lay out in a period of 90 minutes this, and it's one of the most powerful things towards the end of the program, because for law enforcement, we show them where what you saw in Dallas with cops getting killed, that was in tandem with the jihadi movement, even though that's Nation of Islam, it's Black Lives Matter, it's New Black Panther Party. Completely in line. They're financial channels, they're sharing money, they're sharing objectives. And so I just want to close with this 60-second film clip. And it's the first guy you see is Nihad Awad, who's the leader of Hamas in the United States. Hamas doing business as a group called CARE, Council on American Islamic Relations. And Khalil Sabra, a major player in the Islamic movement, who also works for DOJ and DHS on the refugee resettlement issue. And listen to what's coming out of their mouths, okay?
That you are powerful. You can make a whole difference in 2016. You can change the reality of our time. This is the time for us as American Muslims to be in the front, not to retreat, because all of you are leaders. Your votes are your negotiating power in the year 2016. Turn your centers, Islamic centers, mosques, into registration centers for voters. Black Lives Matter is our matter. Black Lives Matter is our campaign.
Basically, you are the new black people of America. If we don't stand, you will see Muslims murdered in the streets. We are the community that staged a revolution across the world. If we could do that, why can't we have that revolution in America?
Wow, right? So when you think about the questions when we're all done doing our presentations, we are watching literally the culmination of these two major movements right now. Now, I suspect for some of you, that was just a fire hose, but we're going to have time to digest it. You're going to get another fire hose with Michael, I'm sorry to say. The good news is we saved the best for last. So Suzanne will probably be a lot more gentler than we are. But thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.